Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome back to a Duet Night Abyss video, and welcome to an early Hellfire guide. I really wanted to get Fantasia this week, but I just don't think I'm gonna hit level 60 soon enough, even though I'm getting close. So I decided to go for Hellfire, and she's actually quite an interesting character, to say the least. She is currently, I think, the only real tank in the game. You could say that a character like, for example, Randy could also be a good tank because he's got some defensive utility. But from what I've been seeing is that he's probably better as an off-field, or sorry, an on-fielder, as like a tanky damage dealer when it comes to getting his I6, his Intron 6. Whereas Hellfire actually has every attribute that a tank should have in games where there are tanks. Now, it's a bit awkward because the current content doesn't really allow for tanks, aside from one specific scenario where I think a taunt on a tank could be quite interesting. But yeah, let's fly straight into it. Before I showcase the abilities very quickly, pay attention to my health bar. You see two things, or I guess three things. One, I do not have a shield. Two, there is a plus icon here. And then three, there's an icon over here. I'll show you what those are in just a second. So let's fly straight into it. So the first thing that she has in her kit is it's stated as a buff here, but it doesn't really count as a buff. Your E is a stance that you go into, and when you are in the stance for, I think it's 15 seconds by default, you will do damage to the enemies around you. And every single time you take damage, this will be extended by a bit longer. So it has a pretty, costly sanity cost, but of course it is going to last for quite a while. You can have this be lower with efficiency. I think it was like 70 by default, if I'm not mistaken. Has a specific duration, and it also does damage based on the HP that you have. This is the normal periodic damage it's going to do. This is the damage it's going to do whenever you get hit. So if an enemy hits you, it'll also do damage. I do think there's an internal cooldown on that. If it's mentioned here, it's not mentioned here, but I'm assuming it has an internal cooldown. But yeah, when you get hit, you will do damage. And this number is pretty big. And every time you do get hit, the skill will last 1 second longer. So the more enemies that are hitting you, the longer it is going to last. That is this thing right here, by the way. So you'll see a timer over here. You'll also see it down here by your UID. But that is basically going to showcase how long you still have the quote-unquote buff going on. You can upgrade the skill to get some more HP going. HP is good for two reasons. One, obviously, survivability, and then two, your damage will also increase based off your HP, because she's an HP scaling character rather than most of the other characters who scale off of attack. Yeah, that's basically your buff. Now, the main thing about her kit is the taunt, the Cage of Despair, and it's very simple. Use it, and enemies in the surrounding area will be taunted to you. So taunting or aggro in this game, or in any game, basically means who the enemies, the AI, wants to attack. So if an enemy spawns and it sees one of your teammates, but then you as Hellfire use this skill or use this ultimate, it will make sure that those enemies, if they're near enough, they will start now attacking Hellfire instead of whatever enemy there is. There's one use case scenario I can think of where this is currently useful, and that is the weeklies, where there are, like, where you can have an enemy spawn that will walk towards your prize chest and will do a bunch of damage to it. If you can taunt them away from that chest while you're DPSing them down, that's nice. But we have found, or I found, or me and a friend have found that you can basically just kind of body block the boss instead of having to taunt them. So I mean, this is cool and all, but there's also other ways around it. Assuming that if the game gets to a point where it's actually difficult and there's a lot of small enemies that can do a lot of damage, then this ability could become very valuable. Currently, again, for like PvE content you play with multiple people, I don't think it's too useful just yet, but I'll get into an example where I think this could actually be quite nice in just a second. You can get more skill duration going here, which is good for two things. For one, oh, actually, no, it's only good for one thing, rather, because the taunt doesn't actually upgrade off of skill duration. So It kind of feel like I should. It kind of feels like it should, but it doesn't. The only reason why skill duration would be that helpful is to get your extension off of getting hit, and then your regular skill duration off of your buff last a bit longer. That's where skill duration comes in helpful. But for some reason, they decided the taunt would not be prolonged with skill duration, which is kind of insane. So in that sense, I don't think it's upgrading this one just yet, because you have to use like a bunch of resources. This one doesn't really take that many resources, but if you don't have them to spare, don't use them here. The health is going to be more useful just because more survivability and a tiny bit more damage, whereas this 6% duration just isn't going to add up for the skill. Then your passive is quite simple. It increases your max HP, and it increases the or it gives you continuous HP recovery. So for now, it's 84% at level 6. I'm not entirely sure where in the calculation this goes in, so I'm not going to say that this is super useful, because maybe it goes in initially at the start of the calculation, which is not going to add it up, or not going to add the numbers up all too much. But yeah, I guess you could test this if you want. I just don't really care about testing this all too much just yet. The max HP boost does increase when you level up, whereas the HP recovery per second doesn't. So you can level the skill up, but the HP recovery that you're getting isn't going to increase. 0.3% max HP per second, so that's basically 1% every 3 seconds. It's not that much, but you know, it's nice to have, because again, you are going to be a tanky character. When you are taunting enemies, you'll increase the damage dealt to them. And the way that I'm reading this is it increases damage dealt to enemies taunted by Hellfire. So when you taunt them, the damage will be increased. I assume that every character in the lobby is going to be doing increased damage, because otherwise it would mention something like Hellfire increases damage dealt to enemies. Yeah, it's very nice to have a bit of a damage boost. Basically, gives you more incentive to be taunting enemies. And then you could upgrade this passive even further, like you'll get the generic buff where it basically just increases attack for self and for pyro allies. Now, before I get into the whole nitty gritty of like not cosmetics, wedges and weapons and all that stuff, importantly, I think the way that I'm currently seeing this, and I don't have my investment level where I want to have it, but I will be working on it, is I think Hellfire could be a very good support for a character like Yale, for example. The whole schmuck with Yale is you want to have people as close to you as possible to be able to just bomb them down. Having Hellfire is going to make it so that enemies are going to be taunted towards her, and generally speaking, your AI partners will be close to you, like they'll kind of want to follow you. So then the enemies will be below you because Hellfire is below you, and then you'll be able to do some damage. Now, kind of the issue is that when you are running content like, for example, the immersive theater, the enemies are just going to go towards you anyway. You don't really need to be taunting them. So in that aspect, I don't think she's going to be that necessary. But the fact that we get some extra damage going here, the fact that we get some extra damage going here, and the fact that she's very, very tanky because of how much health she has, I think it could lead to her being a decent support for Yell. I'm going to work on building both of them to a decent point, and then I'll probably do a video on the immersive theater because I really want to try to clear level 12 with Yell. But when that video's out, we'll see. But for now, let's just keep it at what it is. Yeah, so basically, I think she's going to be a bit better as a combat partner than she is going to be as a on-fielder, so to speak. Quickly, weapons, because, oops, I haven't really spent too much time looking at this just yet. You're looking for weapons that are going to help whatever thing that you think you need for her. So if you want to use her as a damage dealer, if you want her to do as much damage as possible, you need HP and you need skill damage. Those are stats that you want to be chasing. If you feel like you want to use her as a combat partner, then you want stuff like, for example, skill range, right? Because skill range is going to make your taunt have a wider radius. If you feel like you're using her or she's an off-fielder and she's running out of sanity too quickly, then you're looking for max sanity, which I don't think really comes from weapons. But you're also looking for stuff like skill efficiency skill efficiency, skill duration, as far as I can tell, isn't really all too important. I guess the duration of the retribution. Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry. Efficiency if you're running out of sanity, but then the duration, I guess, could add on to how long the buff lasts. Now, that being said, it is shown here as an important stat, but I can't imagine that having a tiny bit of duration to make this a bit longer. I don't think it's going to be that impactful, but you know, it is what it is. For now, I've just slapped the Wayne Wraith and I've slapped the either the Destructor or the Extras Duo on her just to get some more damage or some more range going, because I'm not really focused on using her as optimally as possible. What you could also do in the philosophy of having her as a supportive character is you can slap something on her that is going to give the rest of the team some buffs, like for example the Arclight Apocalypses, right? Because it gives you some duration, which again, it's not that nice, but it also gives you a buff aside from that. When it comes to Wedges, I do feel like, and this is one of the first times I'm going to mention this, I feel like she has decent options, and I do feel like the game kind of wanted us to build specific things. So she is most likely going to be used as a support, and so in terms of Wedges, I'm going to assume that she is going to be a combat partner, not an on-field character. So what you want to be running for your Typhon Prime is either Serenity or Uplift. So Serenity is going to give the rest of your team sanity generation, and also to Hellfire herself. And Uplift is going to give extra damage, just damage dealt. Now, this is not upgraded. I think it's 11% if it is upgraded. The way you want to be doing this is you have your main damage dealer, who is most likely running Resolve or Morale, or maybe at some point Hunt Down, depending on what they need. If they don't need Resolve, or they don't specifically need weapon damage that is not related to a Consonance weapon, then you are going to be running Morale 99% of the time. They'll be running this, and then one support is going to be on Serenity, and then the other support is going to be on Uplift. That's how you want to do it. Doesn't really matter who's on who, because everyone benefits from it. But yeah, you kind of just want to figure out who is on who. I like having some extra sanity, some extra skill efficiency, especially because she does have pretty costly abilities. We've got a 44 cost here and a 66 cost here. And in those cases where you want to be continuously taunting enemies, or you want to hope that your AI partner is continuously taunting enemies, it's always nice to have a bit of extra sanity going and efficiency. I've slapped Nirvana on here for now, just to get some extra HP going. Just to showcase that this is an option. But where I think the main nitty-gritty lies, I don't even have something in here yet. Wait. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter where, but I guess, actually, I was going to put Sidestep in, but something like Rescue could also work there. I just kind of like having Sidestep, because when I do use the character, the extra dash attempt is nice. But yeah, the main thing for her, I think, is going to be the Spectrum, like the Covenanter's Nirvana Spectrum, because it gives you both HP, which is nice, but it also gives you skill range. So if you stack a bunch of these, which you can do when fully upgrading them, you are going to have more HP, which means more survivability, but also more HP means more damage off of your skills. And the range is going to be larger, so you'll be taunting enemies from further away. Again, in current content, enemies are just going to walk at you, but at some point we might get to a stage where you actually really need to be taunting enemies, and then having that extra range is going to be nice. Even if you're not looking at the range for the taunting, it's always just nice having range for your buff as well, because having more range is nice. Yeah. Where is it? Right here, it shows that you're going to get more off of it. So yeah, you want to be building into stuff like that. Basically, get some HP going, and then if you really want to focus on damage, you can get more skill damage going aside from your HP. But if you're focused on using it as an off-fielder or as a a combat partner, then get some sanity, but also get some range, maybe even some duration and some efficiency if you would like. That's basically it. I'm gonna just take her into a little commission real quick. And obviously, like, my investment into the character is not high at all, so don't expect her to have high investment going. I'm actually going to put this one on right now as well. And I'm obviously not using the right wedges, or not the upgraded wedges, or I'm not using the ideal weapon setup, but I want to show you basically what our abilities do in a combat scenario. So let's do a hedge, because we can always use some extra books. And then, oh my god, I'm so okay, wait, hold up. Technical difficulties. I've been farming with Rebecca, like the dirty farmer that I am. We need to be just going to my main team here. Start challenge, there we go. Whoopsies. Alright, Hellfire. Let's showcase the abilities real quick. So maybe Hedge is not the best one to showcase at this level because it's quite a lot of traveling to get to the point where we have to go, but yeah. In scenarios where, and this is actually quite nice, in single player or even with other people, in scenarios where you have enemies who are like dead focused on killing a specific objective, obviously a taunt is going to be quite nice too. So when I wait for the enemies to come near, press our skill to get the periodic damage going. And obviously my Rebecca's just kind of killing everything. I should have probably taken her off. But I can taunt, and then everyone that is going to be near is knocked up, but is also going to be wanting to attack me, basically. So in scenarios where I have other teammates that I need to be protecting, that's quite nice. What I didn't showcase, and I actually have some time because I assumed I was going to kill everything. I'm going to quickly press my skill to also show you here, I didn't show this earlier, the duration of the quote-unquote buff, or like I guess the damage aura around you. And you'll see this also is the same thing here, but it's much easier to see here off of your actual like passive bar. And that number will go up whenever you get damaged. Okay, it's not the most ideal showcase, but I do hope that this was somewhat helpful to see what she does. Again, assume, or not assume, but expect a more updated team video with her and with Yale later on when I do have them built, because as I said, I do want to be clearing level 12 with them. But until then, this is going to have to suffice. I thank you for watching. If there's any questions you have or anything you would like to let me know, make sure to do so in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.